The holographic display cast a soft blue glow across Dr. Naomi Harrison's face as she studied the unusual genetic sequences floating before her. 6 months had passed since the Centauri vessel entered Earth's orbit, and still, every piece of data they shared left her breathless with wonder. Dr. Harrison. The lab's AI assistant chimed softly. Ambassador Venna has arrived for your scheduled meeting. Naomi straightened her lab coat, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. Thank you, Nova. Please let her in. The laboratory doors whispered open, revealing a figure that still managed to take Naomi's breath away, no matter how many times they met. Venna moved with the liquid grace characteristic of her species, her iridescent skin shifting through subtle shades of violet and silver. Her large, almond-shaped eyes held an intelligence that Naomi found both fascinating and unnerving. Dr. Harrison, Venna's voice carried the musical lilt of her native tongue, even when speaking English. I trust I'm not interrupting anything crucial. Not at all, Naomi gestured to the holographic display. I was actually reviewing the genetic markers your medical team shared. The way your DNA uses a quadruple helix structure is remarkable. Venna glided closer, her movement creating small ripples in the air. We find your binary structure equally fascinating. It's amazing how two such different species can achieve consciousness through such diverse paths. As they worked, Naomi couldn't help but study Venna's features. The Centauri weren't humanoid in the way science fiction had imagined aliens might be. Their form was more fluid, almost crystalline in structure, yet they possessed an undeniable beauty that challenged human concepts of aesthetics. There's something I'd like to share with you, Venna said, producing a small crystal that seemed to pulse with inner light. My superiors have authorized me to begin the next phase of our knowledge exchange. Naomi accepted the crystal with trembling hands. This is remarkable. What does it contain? The basics of our biotechnology. We believe Earth is ready to begin understanding how we merge organic and crystalline computing. Venna's eyes seemed to shimmer with excitement. You'll be the first human to study this data. The implications were staggering. Why me? Because you see us as we are, Venna's voice softened. Not as threats or saviors, but as fellow travelers in this vast universe. Your objectivity, combined with your empathy, makes you unique among your people. Naomi inserted the crystal into her lab's interface, watching as new constellations of data filled the air around them. This could advance our medical technology by centuries. That's the hope. Venna moved closer, her presence creating a slight static charge that made Naomi's skin tingle. But there's more. My people believe that true alliance can only be built on complete transparency. We want to establish a permanent exchange program. Over the next few hours, they discussed the details of the program. Scientists from Earth would be welcomed on Centauri vessels, while their researchers would be integrated into Earth's facilities. It was everything Naomi had dreamed of since first learning of their arrival. As they worked, Naomi noticed subtle changes in Venna's behavior. The alien diplomat seemed to find reasons to move closer, to extend their conversations beyond the necessary parameters. There was a personal warmth to their interactions that went beyond diplomatic courtesy. You seem troubled, Venna observed as they finished reviewing the proposal. Does something about the exchange program concern you? Naomi chose her words carefully. Not concerned, exactly. But I can't help wondering why your people chose this moment to share so much. We're still struggling with our own planetary unity. Aren't you worried about how we might use this knowledge? Venna's skin rippled with patterns that Naomi had learned to associate with amusement. Your caution is exactly why we trust you. But there's something else you should know. She paused, her form shifting slightly. I specifically requested to be the one to work with you on this project. The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Naomi felt her heart rate increase. Why? Because in all my studies of humanity, you're the first person who made me question everything I thought I knew about your species. Venna's form seemed to pulse with inner light. You approach the universe with such wonder, such openness. It's affecting. The word choice wasn't lost on Naomi. In their months of interaction, she'd learned that Centauri chose their words with precision. Affecting in what way? Venna moved closer, the air between them charging with static electricity. In ways that make me wonder if there's more to learn about humanity than what's in our scientific databases. In ways that make me want to understand how your species forms bonds, creates connections. Naomi felt her professional demeanor slipping. Venna, are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that perhaps our species have more in common than either of us initially believed. Venna's form shimmered with new patterns, ones Naomi hadn't seen before. Would you be willing to explore that possibility? Outside of our official capacity? The question should have shocked her, should have raised all sorts of ethical and professional concerns. Instead, Naomi found herself nodding. I would. But we'd need to be careful. There are protocols. Always the scientist, Venna's form rippled with what might have been laughter. Then let's approach this as we would any experiment. With careful observation and open minds. As they made plans to meet later, away from the laboratory, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of something momentous. Not just for herself, but for both their species. The prospect was both terrifying and exhilarating. What she couldn't know then was how this moment would echo through the years to come, how it would shape not just her future, but the future of two civilizations. But for now, watching Venna leave her lab, all she could feel was the strange mix of professional excitement and personal anticipation. The crystal pulsed on her desk, filled with secrets that could change everything. Yet somehow, it wasn't the most interesting mystery in her life anymore. That honor belonged to the enigmatic being who had just left, leaving behind questions that no amount of scientific inquiry could fully answer. Commander James Sullivan stood at the viewport of the Orbital Defense Station, his reflection ghosting against the backdrop of stars. The datapad in his hand displayed information that made his stomach turn, surveillance footage from the Centauri vessel, encrypted communications, and energy readings that didn't match their claimed peaceful intentions. Commander, Admiral Pierce is requesting your presence in the war room, Lieutenant Reeves announced from behind him. Sullivan took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. Tell him I'm on my way. The war room was a stark contrast to the rest of the station, its walls lined with holographic displays showing real-time data from Earth's defense grid. Admiral Pierce stood at the central table, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical display. James, Pierce's voice was grave. Tell me you have something concrete. Sullivan placed his datapad on the table, projecting its contents onto the main display. 3 days ago, our quantum sensors detected unusual energy spikes from their ship. The signature matches theoretical weapons research we abandoned decades ago due to its destructive potential. Pierce studied the readings, his frown deepening. And you're certain this isn't part of their declared research projects? Sir, I've cross-referenced everything with Dr. Harrison's reports from the exchange program. None of this appears in their shared data. Sullivan brought up another display. There's more. We've detected encrypted transmissions being sent through what we thought were dormant satellites. They're building something, Admiral. The older man's expression hardened. Something they don't want us to see. Exactly. But here's where it gets complicated. Sullivan pulled up footage from the International Space Research Center. Dr. Harrison's relationship with their ambassador, Venna. It's become personal. Pierce's eyebrows rose. Personal how? They've been meeting outside of official channels. Dinners, private conversations. Our surveillance suggests a genuine connection. Sullivan felt uncomfortable discussing it, but it was relevant. If we're right about the Centauri's true intentions, Dr. Harrison could be compromised without even knowing it. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, studying the data. You want to warn her? She's brilliant, sir. And she has access to our most sensitive research. If the Centauri are planning something, It could be catastrophic, Pierce finished. But if we're wrong, if we spook them without cause, we could destroy everything we've built toward peaceful relations. Sullivan moved to the tactical display, highlighting the pattern of satellite activations. Look at this, sir. They're creating a network, something that could either be a communication grid or a weapons platform. Pierce's voice was barely a whisper. Damn. The room fell silent as both men contemplated the implications. Finally, Pierce spoke again. Approach Harrison carefully. No accusations, no classified intel. Just, make her aware that things might not be what they seem. And if she doesn't believe me, then we proceed with contingency plans. Pierce's expression was grim. I'm authorizing Project Firewall. Full deployment, complete secrecy. Sullivan felt his heart rate increase. Project Firewall was their last resort defense system, designed to counter technological threats they couldn't yet understand. Sir, that could be seen as an act of aggression if detected. Better to be seen as aggressive than dead. Pierce turned to face him fully. You have 48 hours to warn Harrison. After that, we go dark. Dismissed. As Sullivan left the war room, his mind was already racing through scenarios. How do you tell someone that the being they're falling for might be orchestrating humanity's downfall? He'd seen the way Harrison looked at Venna, the wonder and affection in her eyes. The lift took him to the research level, where he found Dr. Harrison in her lab, surrounded by holographic displays of Centauri technology. She looked up as he entered, her smile fading at his expression. Commander Sullivan. This is unexpected. Dr. Harrison, he began, choosing his words carefully. What do you know about quantum resonance weapons? Her brow furrowed. Theoretical research, mostly. We abandoned it years ago due to ethical concerns. Why? Because someone hasn't. He moved closer, keeping his voice low. I need you to think very carefully about everything the Centauri have shared with us. Are there gaps? Things that don't quite add up. Harrison's expression shifted from confusion to defensive anger. If you're implying what I think you are. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking you to do what you do best, observe, analyze, question. Sullivan met her gaze steadily. Because right now, a lot of lives might depend on what you see when you look past the surface. Dr. Marcus Wade's fingers flew across the quantum interface, his heart pounding as the calculations materialized before him. The laboratory hummed with the software of cooling systems, keeping the quantum processors from overheating. Something wasn't adding up in the Centauri's shared technology, and he had spent weeks trying to understand why. Processing complete, the lab's system announced. Simulation results available. Marcus stared at the output, his blood running cold. The supposedly peaceful energy conversion technology they'd been developing with Venna's team had a hidden resonance pattern. When combined with the satellite network being established in orbit, it created something entirely different, a weaponized energy grid capable of destabilizing matter at the quantum level. Computer, run verification sequence beta, he commanded, hoping he was wrong. The results came back the same. A soft chime announced someone's arrival. Dr. Harrison stepped into the lab, looking troubled. Marcus, do you have a moment? He quickly minimized his displays. Naomi, of course. What's on your mind? She leaned against his workstation, her usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. Commander Sullivan visited me yesterday. He had some concerns about the Centauri technology. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. What kind of concerns? He asked about quantum resonance weapons. She studied his face carefully. And now I'm seeing patterns I can't unsee. The gaps in their technical documentation, the way they deflect certain questions. I think I should show you something, Marcus said quietly, bringing his calculations back up. But first, I need to know, how close are you to Venna? Naomi's expression tightened. Close enough to know she wouldn't be part of any deception. Look at this anyway. He expanded the display, showing the hidden patterns in the energy conversion formulas. These equations aren't just about clean energy, Naomi. They're weapon schematics, disguised as peaceful technology. He watched as she processed the information, her scientific mind pulling apart his calculations. Her face paled. This can't be right. I've run the simulations 12 times, Marcus said gently. The satellite network they're building? It's not for communication. It's a delivery system. Naomi shook her head, but he could see doubt creeping into her eyes. Why would they do this? They've shared so much with us, helped us advance our technology. Maybe that's exactly why, Marcus suggested. Give us enough advancement to make us dependent on their technology, but keep the true weapons for themselves. Classic military strategy: arm your potential enemy with technology you can disable or turn against them. A warning light flashed on his console. Someone's accessing our quantum lab remotely. His fingers flew across the interface. It's coming from the Centauri ship. Vena, Naomi whispered. She said she was conducting routine diagnostics today. Marcus's screens filled with deletion warnings. They're wiping our systems. Help me save the data. They worked frantically, trying to preserve the evidence, but the Centauri virus was too sophisticated. Within minutes, every trace of Marcus's discoveries was gone, replaced by the original, sanitized versions of the technology. They knew, Marcus said, slumping in his chair. They knew we were getting close to the truth. Naomi stood frozen, staring at the blank screens. I need to talk to her. Make her explain. Naomi, wait. Marcus caught her arm. Think about this. If we're right, confronting her directly could trigger whatever they're planning. We need to be smart about this. Then what do you suggest? Marcus pulled up a secure communication channel. We contact Commander Sullivan. Show him what we discovered, what little evidence we have left. But first. He reached under his desk and pulled out an old-fashioned external drive. I started keeping offline backups weeks ago. Not everything is lost. As they began composing their message to Sullivan, an alert came through the station's emergency system: attention all personnel. Unknown energy signatures detected in orbit. All non-essential personnel report to designated safety zones immediately. Marcus and Naomi shared a look of horror. We're too late, he whispered. No, Naomi said firmly, grabbing the drive. We can still warn them. Come on. They raced through the corridors of the research center, passing panicked scientists and security personnel. The emergency lights cast everything in a surreal red glow. Dr. Harrison. A voice called out. They turned to see Lieutenant Olivia Santos running toward them. Commander Sullivan sent me. We need to get you both to the secure command center immediately. As they followed Santos through the chaos, Marcus clutched the drive containing their evidence. He thought about all the months of working alongside the Centauri, the technologies they'd developed together, the friendships formed. Had it all been a lie? The station shuddered, and new alarms began to blare. Above them, through the reinforced windows, they could see the Centauri ships taking up attack positions, their crystalline hulls glowing with energy signatures that exactly matched Marcus's calculations. I'm so sorry, Naomi, he said softly, seeing the pain in his colleague's eyes. She squared her shoulders, her scientific detachment warring with personal betrayal. Don't be. We're going to make this right. The station shuddered again as they reached the command center doors. Whatever came next, Marcus knew their world was about to change forever. The only question was, would they survive to see what it changed into? Lieutenant Olivia Santos crouched behind a fallen support beam, her tactical display showing the advancing Centauri forces. 3 months had passed since their betrayal, and Earth's defenses were barely holding. The research facility she'd been assigned to protect housed the last hope for humanity's survival. Status report, she whispered into her comm. Dr. Wade is almost finished with the quantum shield calibrations, came the response from her second-in-command. But we've got bogeys incoming, at least 6 crystal walkers. Olivia checked her weapons charge. The modified pulse rifle was one of the few things effective against Centauri technology, thanks to Dr. Harrison's insights into their crystalline structure. Tell the science team they have 5 minutes. Not a second more. She peered through the ruins of what had once been Singapore's premier research center. The Centauri crystal walkers moved with an otherworldly grace, their translucent forms refracting the morning sunlight. Beautiful and deadly, just like everything else about their former allies. Lieutenant. Dr. Marcus Wade's voice crackled through her comm, we've done it. The shield frequency matches their quantum signature. But what, Doctor? We need to get within 50 meters of their command node to upload the virus. It's the only way to disrupt their entire network. Olivia suppressed a curse. That's suicide. Their defenses are already calculated, another voice cut in. Dr. Harrison's tone was clinical, detached. She'd been different since Vena's betrayal, focused solely on finding a way to counter the Centauri technology. I've analyzed their patrol patterns. There's a gap in their coverage every 7.3 minutes. It's not much, but it's all we have. Olivia signaled her team. Rodriguez, Chen, cover the north approach. Jackson, you're with me. The rest of you, protect the scientists at all costs. They moved through the rubble like ghosts, years of training paying off as they avoided detection. The Centauri command node pulsed with energy ahead of them, its crystalline structure reaching toward the sky like some alien cathedral. Incoming transmission, her tactical officer reported. It's from a Centauri frequency. Block it, Olivia ordered. Wait, Dr. Harrison's voice was strained. It's from Vena. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. Finally, Olivia made a decision. Put it through, but be ready to cut it off. Naomi, Vena's musical voice filled their comms, but there was something different about it, a strain, an urgency that hadn't been there before. Please listen. What you're about to do, it's not what you think. We know exactly what we're doing, Harrison replied, her voice ice cold. We're stopping you from destroying our world. No, you don't understand. The weapons, the attack, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. Some of us tried to stop it, tried to warn you, but our military faction. Vena's voice crackled with interference. They're using my research, perverting everything we worked for. The quantum signatures you're detecting? They're wrong. The harmonics are all wrong. Olivia checked her tactical display. 20 meters to the target. Dr. Harrison, we don't have time for this. She's right, Marcus cut in. The energy patterns, they're different from our original calculations. These readings suggest. A massive explosion rocked the area, throwing Olivia against a concrete slab. Through blurred vision, she saw crystal walkers collapsing, their structures shattering as if struck by some invisible force. What's happening? She demanded. It's Vena, Harrison's voice was filled with wonder. She's using the original quantum harmonics against their weaponized version. The conflicting frequencies are tearing their technology apart. Olivia struggled to her feet, watching as the Centauri command node began to pulse with competing energy patterns. Can they track the source? No, Vena replied, her voice strained. But I can't maintain this disruption for long. Your virus, Naomi, use it now, while their network is destabilized. Please. Without waiting for orders, Harrison started running toward the command node, the quantum virus clutched in her hands. Olivia sprinted after her, providing cover fire against the few remaining crystal walkers. Upload initiated, Harrison announced, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Vena, I don't understand. Why now? Because some promises are worth dying for, came the reply, followed by static. The command node pulsed once, twice, then began to collapse in on itself as the virus spread through the Centauri network. Around them, their enemy's technology began to fail, crystal structures shattering like glass in a symphony of destruction. Olivia grabbed Harrison and Wade, pulling them back as the ground shook. Fall back. Everyone, fall back. As they retreated to safety, Olivia watched Harrison's face. The scientist stared at the falling crystalline structures, tears streaming down her face. Whether they were tears of victory, relief, or mourning, Olivia couldn't tell. Do you think she survived? Marcus asked softly. I don't know, Harrison replied, her voice barely a whisper. But she gave us a chance. And this time, we'll be ready. Above them, the sky was clearing of Centauri ships, their crystalline forms breaking apart in Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. It was a beautiful and terrible sight, a reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything. Olivia checked her tactical display one last time. Command wants us back at base. They're detecting more quantum fluctuations in orbit. It's not over, Harrison said, straightening her shoulders. It's just changed. As they made their way back through the ruins, Olivia couldn't help but wonder what would come next. They'd survived, they'd fought back, but at what cost? And what would they do if Venna, or others like her, returned? Dr. Rachel Chen adjusted her quantum scanner, studying the unusual energy signature that had appeared in lunar orbit 3 years after the Centauri War. The defense bunker hummed with activity as Earth's remaining scientists tried to understand what they were seeing. It's definitely Centauri, she confirmed, addressing the assembled military in scientific leadership. But the signature is different, purer, more like their original technology before the weaponization. Commander Sullivan, now bearing the scars of the war both physically and mentally, leaned forward. How many ships? Just one. Small, probably a diplomatic vessel. Rachel brought up the holographic display. And they're broadcasting on the old frequencies. The ones Venna used during the final battle. The room fell silent at the mention of that name. Dr. Harrison, who had been quietly observing from the corner, stepped forward. Show me the quantum harmonics. Rachel enhanced the display, revealing complex patterns of energy that seemed to dance through the air. Harrison studied them intently, her expression unreadable. It's her, she said finally. These patterns, they're unique to her crystalline structure. She's alive. Admiral Pierce, who had replaced the fallen Admiral Chen, cleared his throat. The question is, do we let her approach? Last time we trusted the Centauri. Last time was different, Harrison interrupted. You all read my report. Venna sacrificed everything to help us. Without her, we wouldn't have survived their attack. Rachel watched the debate unfold, her fingers never leaving her console. The ship in orbit made no aggressive moves, simply waiting. Patient. Almost, hopeful. I have a suggestion, she said, drawing everyone's attention. We've developed quantum shielding based on the harmonics Venna provided. We can allow her to land at the secure facility in Antarctica, surrounded by those shields. It gives us protection while showing a degree of trust. Sullivan nodded slowly. Dr. Chen's right. And if this is a trap, the isolation of the facility means we can contain any threat. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Rachel found herself aboard a hypersonic transport with Harrison, Sullivan, and a select team of scientists and security personnel. The Antarctic facility rose from the ice like a chrome monument to humanity's resilience, its quantum shield shimmering in the perpetual daylight of the polar summer. When Venna's ship landed, it was nothing like the massive crystalline vessels of the war. This craft was small, almost organic in its design, its surface rippling with gentle pulses of light. The airlock cycled, and she emerged. Rachel gasped softly. Vena's crystalline form was different now, cracked in places, with lines of darkness running through her once perfect structure. She moved more slowly, as if each step caused pain. Dr. Harrison, Vena's voice was the same musical tone Rachel had heard in recordings, but weaker. Dr. Chen. Commander Sullivan. Thank you for allowing me to return. Harrison stepped forward, stopping just short of the security barrier. Why are you here, Vena? To make amends. To help you prepare. Vena's form rippled with what might have been pain. The faction that attacked Earth, they were defeated, but others have taken their place. They're exploring new ways to exploit quantum technology, ways that could threaten all sentient life. She extended a crystalline appendage, offering what looked like a data crystal. This contains everything, the true history of my people, our complete technological database, and... She hesitated, a way to prevent anyone from ever using quantum resonance as a weapon again. Sullivan's hand tightened on his weapon. Why should we trust you? Because I'm dying, Vena said simply. The quantum harmonics I used to help you, they shattered something fundamental in my structure. I have perhaps days left. And I would rather spend them helping you prepare than regretting what I didn't prevent. Rachel watched as Harrison moved to the security console, her fingers hovering over the controls. Naomi, she said softly, the shields. I know. Harrison took a deep breath. But sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most important discoveries. She deactivated the barrier. Vena moved forward, her crystalline form catching the light in ways that made the cracks and damage even more apparent. She handed the crystal to Harrison, their hands touching briefly. I'm sorry, Vena whispered. For everything. I know, Harrison replied. So am I. Over the next 3 days, Rachel worked alongside Harrison and Vena, processing the vast database of information. They learned of ancient Centauri conflicts, of faction wars that had shaped their society, and of a growing movement among their people to seek genuine peace with other species. On the 4th day, Vena's structure began to deteriorate rapidly. As they gathered in her chamber, she shared one final insight. Your species has something we never fully understood, she said, her voice growing fainter. The ability to forgive, to rebuild, to find hope in the darkest moments. Don't lose that. It's your greatest strength. Her form shimmered one last time, then dissolved into a shower of crystalline dust that caught the light like diamonds. Rachel looked at Harrison, seeing both grief and determination in her colleague's eyes. What do we do now? We learn. We prepare. We build something better. Harrison picked up the data crystal, its surface pulsing with promised knowledge. And we remember that even in the darkest times, there are always those willing to build bridges, even if they don't survive to cross them themselves. As they left the chamber, Rachel noticed the crystalline dust had arranged itself into a pattern on the floor, the same quantum harmonic that had saved Earth 3 years ago. A final message, a final gift, a final hope for tomorrow.